thank you so much for joining us, Doug, on Dwellynn Show. I'm super excited to have you. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. Doug Marshall is our guest today. He's a veteran in the business, and he's going to be teaching us a lot about not just apartment investing, but just general, strategies in real estate. So, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, Ola, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. So Doug, like I said, is a veteran in real estate. He's got over 40 years of experience, 30 of which he was kind of doing financing apartments and just general commercial real estate. For the past decade, he's also invested in rental properties himself. He also got his MBA from Oregon, and in 1999 he got his CCIM designation, which is kind of like the PhD in commercial real estate investing. So I think, Doug, you can do a way better job than I can. Can you just tell us a little more about yourself and kind of what you've been up to, lately?
I'd be happy to. When a podcast host asks me to introduce myself to their audience, I typically state the highlights of my resume, but I really kind of think that's a boring way to introduce yourself. So today I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it in a cryptic fashion. So I've been in commercial real estate for about 38 years, and most of which is on the financing side of the business. And then for the last 11 years, I've been investing in commercial real estate. But I'd rather tell you my story from a different perspective. And I think it's one that a lot of people in your listening audience will be able to relate to. So here goes. For the first 24 years as a commercial real estate professional, I was on that never-ending hamster wheel of low-paying jobs. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was just barely getting by financially. And I realized something had to change. Had to change big time because in 2003, I started my own business, Marshall Commercial Funding. And for the first time in my career, I was making good money. And that really felt good. But even so, I knew there was no way I was going to retire well. It just wasn't going to happen because I could do the math, and I could see that I was too close to retirement to make up for those hard, lean years. And I realized it was very likely I might not be able to retire at all. But at the same time, I watched my real estate clients prospering, and their liquidity and their net worth were growing rapidly as a result of their real estate investments. So 11 years ago, I started investing in commercial real estate. And today, not only could I retire if I chose to, but I could do so comfortably. And this year, for the first time, my passive income from my rental properties, when added to my future Social Security checks, significantly exceeds my personal expenses. So, and once passive income exceeds personal expenses, you've achieved financial freedom. So that's my story, kind of like I'm sticking to it. Why am I telling you this is because I believe that many of your listeners right now, they're either living paycheck to paycheck, or they realize they aren't going to retire well. And I'm here to tell you, if I can do it, if I can go from financial distress to financial success, so can they.
I really, really love that. I think, a lot of people get into the real estate investing game thinking they want to flip a property, or they want to buy foreclosures, or they want to wholesale. But at the root of it, what they're really finding, or what they're really seeking, is financial freedom. Right. And you had a fantastic definition of when your passive income exceeds your expenses, you've made it, you've done it. Right. So the way in which you get there, is very important. Right. So, and we don't want folks kind of going on the hamster wheel. So from your experience, Doug, what would you say was that, one strategy or one thing that really helped you to achieve that, financial freedom?
Well, I believe, I'll say this forever, I think there's real wealth to be created in owning commercial real estate. It's not a myth, and it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. A lot of people make it sound like it is. It actually works. And if your goal is to achieve financial freedom, someday you want to be able to retire comfortably, then I strongly suggest that you start investing in real estate because it is the surest path to getting there. I don't know if there's any other method by which today you can achieve financial freedom other than through commercial real estate. And I believe my book that's launching December 18th from Amazon, Mastering the Art of Commercial Real Estate Investing, can help you get you there.
So you basically started your own company and you were investing in real estate. So what were the major challenges when you started your company? Because that's like a big piece when you're just starting out, right? You get, people say you get punched in the stomach, over and over again. So how did you overcome those challenges, and what were they in the early stages of your business?
Well, I think the number one challenge is the fear of the unknown. I look back on when I finally made the jump to being my own boss, and I was highly competent at what I was doing as a commercial real estate professional on the financing side. I had been doing it for years and years and years, and I was really good at it. And I really didn't have any desire to go into business for myself, but I was kind of forced into it because I could see that I wasn't making enough money to really live life well. And so I had to get over that fear. And that first month, Ola, I lost, I think it was 8 pounds, and I hardly slept. And it was really stressful. But as soon as I got through that first month and I saw, I can actually do this on my own, everything worked out beautifully. The first year of Marshall Commercial Funding, my income went up threefold. I'm not saying 30%. I'm saying 300%. I had a three times what I'd made the previous year, and really things have not really changed much since then. So it's really nice to be able to be your own boss and to be able to make good money.
So before we actually started the show, you were talking to me about one of your deals, and I think it's always good, right, just to highlight, some of the things that you learned from going to a deal that wasn't as great as you thought. Usually on podcasts, people come on and tell you how they made X amount, and they make it all sound really good, and that does happen for the majority of time, I guess. But sometimes you don't hit your numbers as you think you would. So can you pick us, just give us one deal that didn't go as well, and what were the mistakes, and what were things that you actually learned from those mistakes?
Well, I'd be happy to. In fact, I really think that you learn more from those investments where things don't go quite as you expect them to go. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Not every commercial real estate property that I've invested in turns out to be a home run. Now that I've gotten that confession off my chest, maybe some of you can relate. But in the summer of 2007, which turned out to be the absolute, peak of the last real estate cycle, I, along with a like-minded group of investors, purchased a 32-unit property located in a small town. And at the time, it seemed like it'd be a good investment. It had large unit sizes, one-story buildings. It was located in a nice little quiet town. And it had the potential down the road to be converted to condominiums. And I thought, hey, what could go wrong? Well, it turned out a lot of things could go wrong, most of which we could not have been predicted by either myself or even the most knowledgeable of real estate investors. And to my great relief, we sold that property a few years ago. And I think I learned 4 lessons. One is market timing is everything. That old adage, you make money on an investment when you purchase it, not when you sell it, is very true. And this property had very little chance to perform well because we simply paid too much for it. And if we'd bought that property at maybe a couple of years earlier, at a much less inflated price, the property probably would have performed admirably, but we didn't. So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing was there's a reason why properties in small markets have higher cap rates. When the economy went bust in 2008, we had all sorts of things, happening. The unemployment soared, vacancy rates rose, rents flattened. Some cases they declined. But as bad as the news was in the large metropolitan areas, it was far worse in small towns. And when this property finally turned around, it took another 2 years before the occupancy rates rose, and I started seeing modest rent increases again. And that's because it took that much longer for the small markets to rebound. So I've learned there's a reason why properties in small markets have higher cap rates. And I see a lot of people today, they're chasing cap rates and they're going to these tertiary markets. And they don't realize that, yeah, it's, you know, it's a nice cap rate, but you might be paying for it in the end when the market turns. The third thing I learned, Ola, was that never underestimate the cost of deferred maintenance. You know, this property was purchased as a value-added play. We realized that this property needed a lot of money, and we thought we had a sizable war chest. And when looking back on it, we didn't even get close to the amount of money we needed for capital improvements. And I'm sure the buyer of our property was thinking that all he had to do is to make this property perform well was to tackle all the deferred maintenance. And we had put lots and lots of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this property, trying to get it up to a certain standard, and we still couldn't get it there. And the fourth thing is, and this happens so often, it's embarrassing, is you got to pay close attention to your on-site manager. You know, the saying that you get what you inspect, not what you expect, is true. You know, and during the 8 years we owned the property, we had 3 different on-site managers. We had to fire the first 2. And the situation was simple, that if we watched them and we monitored their work, the property did well. But because it was kind of out in the hinterland, so to speak, we didn't visit very often. And because of that, if they knew that they weren't going to be inspected, the property slowly went downhill. And then we'd find out what they've been doing, and we all of a sudden the condition of the property would change, and it would start to work well again. And so we learned the hard way that you get what you inspect, not what you expect.
I think
so those are the four.
Yeah,
the 4 things
I love those so much. I mean, the number 3, being undercapitalized, is a huge one, right? You go into a project and you think, oh, we just need, like, you know, $5K a door, $10K a door. And in reality, you know, to cure that deferred maintenance, it's probably times 3 or times 4 of that. So it's very interesting you brought that up. So I think we can move to kind of like the next one. So can you give us a good deal that you acquired and that actually turned out to be really good? Just to put our dual listeners on a high.
I'd be happy to. Those are the fun ones. Yeah, those are the fun ones. So in 2009, at that time, if you can recall, the market at that point was in a free fall. In fact, it was really difficult to find financing back then. There was very few lenders out there lending. And we found this property that we wanted to buy. The property had done well, but what had happened is that the owner of that property had taken the cash flow from that property to help finance a condominium project that he was building, and the condominium project went bust, and he was no longer paying the mortgage on this particular apartment. It was a 56-unit apartment, and we ended up buying it for $39,000 a door. And at the time, the real issue was, you know, the numbers looked really good, but you know, you're struggling with everybody else is fleeing commercial real estate, and you're wondering, should I be buying this now? You know, what's going to go on? And we finally found a lender that was not really a real estate lender, but it was the only one we could find. It took us 9 months to find a lender, and they had very mediocre rates and terms. They had a 25-year AM. It was a 5-year fixed at a really high interest rate. But, you know, a year or 2 later, we were able to refinance it, got smoking interest rate and terms and interest only. And I think we ended up with 4.15% interest rate on this property. And the day that property is worth about $1 million, per unit, we bought it for $39,000 a door. It's now probably worth $160,000 a door. And we put in $1 million into that. We've already gotten cash back of $3 million back from refinancing the property, and it's worth substantially more. And we still have a lot of equity still left in the deal.
Fantastic! Congratulations on that one. That's definitely a good high for our dual listeners, for sure. So, you're doing this project, you know what not to do, and then you know what to do. So if I'm a Dwell listener listening on our conversation and I want to get into commercial, real estate investing, because I know that's a way to build wealth, what do you think is the first step that I need to take to get started?
Well, I think, I think really, and I'd like your opinion on this, Ola. I believe the number one problem that most people have in investing in commercial real estate is that they have a fear, and they have two different types of fear. One's the fear of failure, and the other one is the fear of the unknown. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally agree. Totally agree, right? Regardless if it's commercial or not commercial real estate, is just the fear of, taking that jump, right? Am I going to do well? Am I going to execute? And I think for commercial, more specifically, people are afraid of the magnitude, right? If it's buying a house down the street for $40,000, put another, $50,000 or $60,000, sell for $150,000, it's small numbers. But when you start to add the zeros, when you start talking about a property for 7.5 or 10 million, just, naturally people think, well, that's out of reach. I've never seen those zeros ever in any account. I can achieve that. But I think folks can mitigate that fear with education, right? If you get a mentor or maybe just learn about
Yes.
commercial related investing, it won't be as scary as it might sound. Because frankly, it is bigger, right, than residential. So I can understand. That's kind of my opinion. The other thing,
yeah,
guys,
I agree with that. This is,
please go on, please.
well, I agree with you right there. I think on the fear of failure, it's all about looking foolish in the eyes of your family and friends if things go wrong. And I get that. I really do. But I think what has to happen, Ola, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think they need to have a different mindset. It's not about success or failure. It's about that mindset of either you win or you learn. In everything we do, we either win, make the right decision, or we learn an important lesson. So next time we have a better outcome. It's kind of like me in that one property that we had a real problem with. Oh, by the way, on that property, we still made money. We had a 7% internal rate of return on it, but that's nothing to crow about by any stretch of the imagination. But
considering
sometimes your investment,
right?
That's right. Sometimes your investment is a home run, and sometimes you learn what not to do. So next time you have a higher probability of being a success. So I think on fear of failure, that's what I find is that people need to just change their mindset and understand that you win or you learn. And then the other side of it, which I think you were alluding to, is the fear of the unknown. For most of us, investing in real estate is a big leap into the unknown, but it really doesn't have to be that way. If the first-time investor would ask 5 questions, they could really kind of narrow down that fear of the unknown. And the first one is do I want to be an active or passive investor? A lot of people don't even realize that that's a possibility, that they can be a passive investor. And I'm guessing that you probably have a group of passive investors invest with you. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're constantly looking for more passive investors. Absolutely.
Right. And you see, a lot of people don't know that you can have that option. The active investor like yourself makes all the decisions, what to buy, how much to pay, how to manage the property, how to finance the property, you name it. And the passive investor just leaves all those decisions to the active investor. His role is just to contribute the capital needed to buy the property. So, so assume that for a moment that you want to be a passive investor. The next question is who do you want to invest with? Do you want to invest with somebody you know already, or a traditional sponsor with a proven track record in your local market? Or do you find a sponsor through a crowdfunding portal? There's a variety of different ways. And in the book, I go through the pros and cons of those options. But really you have some real options there. But once you've decided between investing with a traditional sponsor or a crowdfunding source, you can kick back, you're done. You can relax, your major decisions are made. But if you're an active investor, you still have 3 more questions or a decision you have to make. The first one is, who do I want to have on my real estate advisory team? You know, by that, you really just need to ask, what knowledge gaps do I have that can be better filled by someone else? You know, you think about the real estate broker, the mortgage broker, a real estate attorney, a variety of different people, a general contractor or property management company. Those are people that you should develop a real estate advisory team with. The second question you need to ask or decision is, how will I finance the property? Are you going to shop the mortgage market on your own? Or are you going to use the services of a commercial mortgage broker? And then finally, how will you manage the property? Excuse me. Will you self-manage the property? Or will you hire an on-site manager that reports directly to you? Or are you going to hire a property management company? And if you think about it for a moment, if you answered those questions and you knew that all before you bought your first property, just think how much of that fear of the unknown would be taken care of. So I encourage people to ask those 5 questions before they buy their first property. And that really helps to get them off that fear of saying, well, am I going to do this? And how am I going to do it? If they have those questions answered, they can then proceed pretty well.
Totally agree. And, you know, before we go into your book, we're definitely dwelling into the quick round. So these are going to be quick questions and quick answers. You ready, sir?
Sure.
First question. What would you say is unique about Doug? What is that unique trait that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think it's my analytical skills. I do things from a different perspective than a lot of people do. So I would guess it's my being able to take a look at a project and then to be able to analyze it in such a way that I can come up with an answer. Yes, I'd like to proceed or not proceed. And I can do that relatively quickly.
Awesome. Second question. What was the last book that you read? And what was the one thing that you picked up from that book?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I just finished reading Mastering Fear by Webb. And Brandon Webb is a retired Navy SEAL. And so if anybody, you know, could talk about fear, I would think he would. And he did an excellent job in the book. And he explained that anything of any importance that we ever want is on the other side of fear. And think about it for a minute. That is absolutely true. You know, that the things in life that you truly want are truly things that require effort and the possibility of failure, just like investing in commercial real estate. And so you need to get over that fear factor. And in the book, he explains kind of a 5-step process to get through managing your fear and actually using it, harnessing your fear, and as he calls it, mastering fear.
Wow, that's a good one. I don't think I've heard of that. I'll definitely put that in the show notes for our Dwell listeners. Final question. What would you say, you know, you do for fun? Because you have your business, you've got, you know, your real estate investment. What would you say is the one thing that you like to do for fun, or maybe, you know, just a range of varieties of fun that you engage in?
Well, I have a couple. I am an avid reader. I love to read. And one of the things that's happened in the last year, which I wish I'd have done it sooner, is that I now have the Audible app on my iPhone. And so when I commute to work, I'm always listening to a book. To me, that is a really good use of my commute time. In fact, that's where I listen to Mastering Fear. And then secondly, I've been a golfer all my life, but for some reason, the last like 4 or 5 years, I've gotten a renewed appreciation for the game. So I play golf every week. I play rain or shine, I just play. And in the Pacific Northwest, you know, it rains a lot, but I'll play every Friday morning, not unless there's a monsoon going on. And it's kind of like therapy for me.
Sounds good. So the Investor Guide to Commercial Real Estate, how to build wealth and grow passive income from your rental properties. That is such an amazing title. Doug, can you just kind of tell us, you know, a little bit about the book, why you wrote it, and what to expect from the book?
Well, I wrote the book because over the years, I've had highly successful real estate investors that I've had the privilege of serving on the financing side. And I really believe that the book, the title, when I talk about the art of commercial real estate investing, it's from my years, I've seen that it's a lot more to do with the art than crunching the numbers. Even though I'm analytically inclined, I've seen that my clients have a much more developed subjective feel about a property. They don't look at it, the potential acquisition, as it is at the moment. Rather, it's all about creating a vision for the property. You have to do the same thing, don't you, Ola? When you're looking at a property, and it's about understanding market trends. It's perceiving how a neighborhood is trending, developing an awareness of where we are on the real estate market cycle. Just to name a few factors worth knowing. And these parameters are far more subjective than objective in scope. And that is why I titled the book, The Master of Mastering the Art of Commercial Real Estate Investing. I believe it truly is more of an art than a science. So
totally agree.
I have written the book. Okay, I believe that a lot of people miss that. And then I go right back to where I was before. When I said to you at the very beginning of this interview, there's real wealth to be created in commercial real estate. And it's not a myth, and it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Awesome.
And I could be the poster child for that, because 11 years ago, I was hurting financially. And I haven't done anything that other people can also do. So if you really want to achieve financial freedom, I strongly agree, or strongly suggest that you start investing in real estate investing. I believe it's the surest path to gaining true wealth. And I believe the book, Mastering the Art of Commercial Real Estate Investing, can help you get there. It's all about principles of investing. And I give a lot of real life examples of what I've seen actually happen that will give you kind of an insight on how to invest.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to put a link in the show notes for our Dwell listener when that comes out. So if I'm a Dwell listener and I'm like, I really like Doug, I like what he's saying, how can people reach out to you and get connected with you?
Well, the best way right now is to go to my website. My website for Marshall Commercial Funding is just marshallcf.com. And if you want to know about the book, there's a landing page on my website that will tell you all about it. And you can download a couple of free chapters to find out if that's something that you're interested.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Doug. Really appreciate your time here today. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Olaf. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.